Right, hi everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name's Eva. I'm from the Future Students team, and I'm joined by Elizabeth Hoban. She's also from Future Students, and then we have Robin McCarthy, the Program Director for the Certificate of Education Support, and also Mary Ann Hunter, who's the Associate Head Learning and Teaching for the College of Arts Education, Law and Education. All right, so I'm going to hand over to you, Mary Ann, to do our welcome to country.
Thanks, Eva, and hi and welcome everyone. Today we're meeting on Lutruwita, which Tasmania, Aboriginal land, sea and waterways. I acknowledge with deep respect the traditional owners of this land, the Muwinina people, which we meet today. And depending on where you are in the rest of Tasmania, of course. The Muwinina people belong to the oldest continuing culture in the world. They cared and protected country for thousands of years. They knew this land, they lived on the land, and they died in these lands, and we honour them today. For the Muwinina people, the area around Nipaluna or Hobart was their country, and they called Mount Wellington Kununyi. I acknowledge that it's a privilege to stand on country and walk in the footsteps of those before us. Beneath the mountain, among the gums and waterways that continue to run through the veins of the Tasmanian Aboriginal community. And it's especially really, it's really amazing to be connecting with you at this time too, given that it is, this week is Reconciliation Week. And I've been looking at images recently of all the people that walked over the bridge on these lands 20 years ago. I pay my respect to elders past and present, and to the many Aboriginal people that did not make elder status, and to the Tasmanian Aboriginal community that continue to care for country. We recognise a history of truth which acknowledges the impacts of invasion and colonisation upon Aboriginal people, resulting in the genocide and forcible removal from their lands. Our island is deeply unique, with spectacular landscapes, with our cities and towns surrounded by bushland, wilderness, mountain ranges and beaches. I stand for a future that profoundly respects and acknowledges Aboriginal perspectives, culture, language and history, and a continued effort to fight for Aboriginal justice and rights, paving the way for a strong future.
Thank you, Mary Ann. What are the certificates? So basically they're 4 units, full-time, 1 semester or 2-term certificate, giving students the opportunity or people the opportunity to study for 6 months and receive a certificate from the University of Tasmania. And they have been offered as part of the federal government high relief package in response to the COVID crisis, acknowledging the fact that that many people's jobs may have been affected by this, and there would be a lot of interest in upskilling. And it gives you the opportunity to get this qualification at a reduced cost. So there's between a 50 and 100% scholarship on the units if you take them in 2020. And this gives you the opportunity to credit those units towards an associate or bachelor degree level, depending on which certificate you used. And it begins in July 2020. So the study areas are nursing, education, university preparation, health, engineering, natural and physical science, agriculture and business and management. But today we're here to talk specifically about the undergraduate certificate in education support. And I'm going to pass over now to Robin McCarthy, who is the program director, and so she can talk to us in a bit more detail about what this certificate is, what you'll be studying and what you might be able to do with that. So, so Robin, over to you.
Thanks, Eva. So the Certificate of Education Support caters to a variety of roles, and I guess more commonly here in Tasmanian schools, for example, we refer to the role as teacher aide or teacher assistant, and the role of the TA can be vary quite a bit, but overall it's supporting teaching and learning in schools context most of the time, sometimes working across a number of classrooms within a school, working with small groups of learners, particularly supporting their literacy and numeracy development, for example. Or in secondary schools, we often see TAs working in home economics classrooms, or in the IT technology area, supporting learning in that regard. More often though, a TA role involves working one-on-one with a student who may need additional support to engage in learning, or with English as a second language, for example. And when TAs work with specific individuals in schools, the role is often funded by the Commonwealth Government, and that's to work in more specialised roles, TA roles with disability support, or in literacy and numeracy programs that are run over and above what's already operating within the school. But education support work is actually becoming more common in early learning centres as well. So those learning centres are sometimes connected with schools, but they're also sometimes connected with childcare centres. And there are other types of education support work that you can do as well. So it might not necessarily always be working to support children in their learning directly, but it might be as a resource aid, for example, which would involve assisting with technologies for classroom learning experiences, or developing resources, and some more administrative tasks as well. So there's a wide variety of aspects and contexts that you can get engaged in with the certificate in education support. The certificate's comprised of 4 units of study. The first is called Foundations of Education Support, and then, as the name suggests, that introduces you to the role of education support. It gives you some insight into the professional activity that you'll undertake as an education support person. It focuses on some theoretical underpinnings for the role, but also the more practical skills that are required in undertaking that work. So it's a really nice and important introduction to the role. We have another unit that you study in the course called Academic Literacies, and that's got a dual purpose. Firstly, it prepares you for your academic success at university. So it takes you through the expectations of university assignment work, helps you in developing the types of skills you need for success in that regard. Even more importantly, it provides you with an opportunity to consider your own personal literacy and numeracy skills, and in light of those skills and how you will apply those in your education support role. So it provides you with guidance, an opportunity to reflect on those, and some ways forward to strengthen those skills so that you can work towards your career goals confidently, feeling that you have the skills you need to undertake that work. The third unit in the course is Growth and Motor Development across the lifespan, and this is a really interesting unit where you get to or you gain a foundational knowledge of human development. So that is how we develop physically and cognitively from birth right through to adulthood. But there is a particular focus on early childhood and childhood development because that's what's most relevant to this role, of course. So you learn how to support children and support their learning in relation to the benefits of physical activity and that sort of thing as well. So supporting, as I mentioned earlier, supporting children with physical disabilities, you know, to move around a classroom, to move around the wider school community, to undertake PE lessons, that sort of thing. That's often something that education support workers are tasked with. So it's a really important unit in preparing you for that type of work as well. And the final unit in the suite of 4 is Foundations of Teaching. And here you get to learn alongside peers who are studying in a range of education courses, including teaching and education support, of course. You'll gain some insights into the role of, or the ways that the role of teacher and education support worker complement each other in supporting children's learning in the classroom or in the early learning context. You'll have an opportunity to carry out some observation of effective teaching practice through videos and reflect on those observations and talk about them in light of your own past experiences and what all of those experiences and your new understandings that you've collected through these 4 units actually bring to the work that you'll do as an education support person, and in forming your own identity as an education support person as well, which is really important. And the really nice thing about that unit, well, actually about the suite of units, is that they'll open up pathways for you if you decide that you want to move on beyond completing the certificate course, move on in developing your expertise as an education support worker, or as just in education in general. And I'll hand over to Marianne to talk to you more about that, about what the opportunities might be for you, and how you can work towards them if you choose to.
Thanks, Robin. So after the Certificate of Education Support, if it really piques your interest in becoming an education support worker or even becoming a teacher, then there's a lot of options after that. So one is to do another 6 months and graduate with a diploma of education support, and this is a new suite of units that we've got coming online next year, and there you'll have the opportunity to expand on some of the aspects that Robin was discussing, and to understand a little more specifically some foundations of literacy and numeracy as they're taught within the schooling context as well. Following that, we also have a 2-year associate degree in education support, where this is a very well recognised degree and an established degree here in Tasmania in particular, but will also be worth quite a lot right across Australia, depending on where you're considering enrolling from. And this associate degree really skills you right up in the curriculum and pedagogy aspects of what's happening in the classroom. You also look at areas like planning for positive behaviour, so really engaging with students in ways that enable them to learn in the very best ways possible and in the most specific ways possible to support them as learners in positive ways so that they keep engaged. And also arts education, so particularly for those who might be looking at these sorts of allied professional roles in schools. Often arts education will be something that you'll be supporting teachers with or supporting a school with as well. So we've got an exciting and very fun unit in music and visual arts as part of that associate degree as well. Then also the pathway gets longer and more open after that too, because if you're keen to become a registered teacher, so if you have this experience in the schools and you're really keen to keep going, all of these units articulate into our Bachelor of Education degree. And that Bachelor of Education degree is 4 years overall, but you'll have the opportunity to graduate with any of these qualifications leading up to that. But that Bachelor of Education degree offers you the qualifications needed to register as a teacher in any state or territory in Australia.
That's great. Thank you very much, Robin and Marianne. So on to the sort of administrative side, how to apply. Basically, you just need to visit our application portal. The link will be on the website for the Job Ready certificates. Search for the undergraduate certificate that you're applying for, and complete the form. If you've done any previous study with either a high school or a university in Australia, then we'll be able to access your qualifications directly. Otherwise, you can attach them as part of the application. And next slide, please, Liz. And then just to explain what these scholarships are. So they are, you don't need to apply separately for them. They are automatically applied if you receive an offer for the certificate. They're available to domestic students only. And they only apply for units that you take in 2020. So if you did want to do it part-time, only the units that you do this year would receive the discount, and then the courses that you did in 2020 would be at the normal rate. Next slide, please. And then HECS Help. So this course is $1,250. So you would be able to, if you're an Australian citizen, apply to defer that payment with a HECS Help student loan. and that would mean that you wouldn't need to pay up front, and you could pay that back slowly once you graduated. You would just need to remember to complete the ECAF form, which basically demonstrates that you're eligible for the loan. Okay, so we're on to questions now. So I'll hand over to Liz, who manages our Q&A. Doesn't look like we have any so far, do we, Liz?
Not so far, but I can think of a few that people might have. So I might just ask a few questions and hopefully you can answer them. When exactly does the semester start for July? Do we know the start date yet?
Yeah, so that will be the 13th of July, which is semester 2.
And please, anyone that's there, please don't hesitate to type your questions in the chat. We'll be able to help you with those. So when I'm applying, I can apply for credit through just the normal application, or tick that I would like to apply for credit. Is that how I will be able to get credit through to this course?
Yeah, so if you've completed credit, if you've completed study at a university, another university, then yeah, you can, there will be a button that you can tick as part of the online application process, and your transcript will then be assessed by one of our college staff, and we'll let you know if you're eligible for any credit for that. And that will then mean that you won't have to, if you do get credit, you won't have to complete that particular unit, and you won't have to obviously,
so that's assessed
tuition fee would be cheaper.
That's assessed on a person by person basis, I take it then?
That's correct, yeah.
Perfect. If I get the credit and I go through the pathways that Marianne has suggested, how much would that shorten a Bachelor of Teaching, do you know? Or is it, you know, do you get, you know, a couple of shorter semesters where you're not doing as many units, or, yeah.
So did one of you want to answer that one, or?
Yeah, sure. So if you take the certificate, then that will shorten, if you go right through to the BEd, the Bachelor of Education, it will shorten it by 6 months.
Okay, perfect. So to make it 3.5 years.
Yep.
Perfect. Okay.
After the certificate.
After the
That's right.
after the certificates. Perfect.
Yeah, and then obviously if you've done any other study before that, that might shorten it, or it might just mean that you might study part-time for some of the semesters, depending on how much credit you got.
Perfect. There are a few that I can think of, unless Eva, you have any other questions for Robin or Marianne, or if anyone has any other questions for us that's still online.
Yeah, we'll stick around until 1 if you think of any questions. Feel free to put it in the Q&A. Here are our contact details if you think of questions after this webinar as well, and we'd be more than happy to help you out there. So we'll just wait a few more minutes and see whether anyone has any more questions there.
While we're waiting for those questions, another aspect to this course is that it's appropriate for people who are also teaching in non-formal education contexts. So for applicants who are interested in supporting learning at home, or they're working in community organisations or in other volunteer type situations, for example, in supporting adult literacy or numeracy, or working in community organisations that are working with after school activities. A lot of the work that you will come across in this degree isn't specifically for school encounters. It's about teaching and learning. It's about educational support. So even though there'll be lots of examples, of course, of educational encounters in the schooling environment, there's also that sense that education just doesn't happen in school. It happens right across the community, in homes, as well as community centres and libraries and other aspects as well. Robin, is there anything that you wanted to add to that?
No, that's a really good point. Thank you, Marianne. And I think there's also value in this certificate course for people who are working in that whole range of education contexts, but not necessarily in a teaching support role as such, but perhaps even an administrative role. I'm thinking of some of the school support officers who are working primarily administratively, but with the understandings that would be gained through some of these units in the certificate could actually really enhance their skills and the work that they do and what they can offer in a school as well. So I think there are lots of opportunities there, and across a wide range, as you suggest.
Yeah, I think it's really about these transferable skills, isn't it? I think there's so many skills that you can learn in one context and apply that to a different context. And I think that's, being able to do that is, is very desirable to employers, to see that you've developed those skills. It looks like, do we have a question here? Hi, Rochelle. So I am going to read this out. I'm just wondering, I'm doing the Wellbeing Toolkit course with UTAS. Are there any recommended modules to complete within that correlate with the course? Now, Robin and Marianne, do you know much about the structure of the Wellbeing Toolkit and how that relates to education? I might bring up the Marianne?
No, I don't, Eva. I can take that kind of question on notice in a way to help to find out and roll back to you.
Yeah, let me just.
It's a great question.
It is, yeah. So some of the certificates actually have the Wellbeing Toolkit as one of the units that you can choose, but the education isn't. So there is one called Learning to Learn, which is sort of is really just about learning those practical skills and the techniques to become a better self-learner. So that might be valuable. I don't know if you wanted to have a quick look, Marianne and Robin, just one moment, at that to see whether you thought any of the others might be beneficial. In terms of this specific certificate. Did you get that link that I just sent you? Were you able to see that? I'm not sure. Because it does cover a whole range of different areas of study. So I'm not sure if
it hasn't quite come through to me yet. Has it come through? Oh, sorry, you're in the chat. Has it come through email, Eva, or?
I just put it in the chat. Did it come through to you? Maybe I'll see if it works.
Thank you.
Directly here.
But from what I can tell, Rochelle, there isn't any direct units that come from wellbeing into the education one. Like Eva said, some of the other certificates do have a wellbeing unit that reflects right into the certificate, but in the case of education, it's got a few more subject specific, I guess, units for people to complete.
Yeah, and we do cover wellbeing in one of the units in the, if you go on to do the diploma or graduates, the diploma or the associate degree, there is an opportunity to study more about wellbeing as part of this degree. But at this stage, we don't have a direct credit, for example, if you finish the wellbeing toolkit. Unfortunately, we can't credit you for that module in our work. It's not exactly relevant, it doesn't exactly overlap to that. But certainly it would have hopefully given you a bit of a taste anyway.
Yeah, I think just kind of, if you haven't studied at university at all, or you haven't studied for a while, it's kind of a great sort of taster of what kind of online study is like. And the education, the associate degree in education support, is that online or is that so that's also online? So yeah, so and does it have a face-to-face option as well, or is it pure?
Some of the units do. There are one or two that might be offered only online, but the vast majority will have access to both options, face-to-face and online.
So, right. Does that answer your question, or do you need us to get back to you on anything else with that?
you can say yes in the chat, or I wonder if you might be able to do a thumbs up. Oh, great. Happy to help, Rochelle. Glad that helped, even though I guess, yeah, there aren't specific education units within that wellbeing toolkit. We've got 1 more minute, so if anyone has any more questions, let me know. Otherwise, we'll probably wrap up. All right. Okay. Well, thank you very much for joining us today. It's been great to sort of connect with our prospective students, and feel free to get in touch, as I say, on this number or email address if you think of any more questions. And big thanks to Robin and Marianne for coming along and giving us more information about this certificate. It's been great having you join us as well.
We hope it's been useful. And yes, any further questions, yeah, through Eva and Elizabeth on that number and email, and they'll direct anything further to us. But we hope to meet you sometime soon if you choose to join us.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks very much. I'm going to stop recording now. Okay.